there are cycles in the crypto world, as you all know. I've made a lot of money in the cycles. I've lost money in the cycles. I've made more money, thankfully, on the up cycles than I lost in the down cycles. And one of my resources is somebody that was very early in the crypto revolution. As a matter of fact, he's been on the cusp of so many trends, and all of you know Michael Terpin because he is considered to be one of the #1 thought leaders in the crypto space. How many of you know Michael? I've been after Michael for quite some time to come on the cruise. I tried to get him to come last year. He graciously agreed to come this time and spend some time with you here on stage. So please welcome my great friend, Michael Terpin.
15 years. Okay, so ignore that phone number. That's from about 15 years ago. You could have asked my new one. It's
back when we met.
The new one's 939 number. So let's see. Do we have the slides?
It's coming. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I came out with this book in November, Bitcoin Supercycle. Skyhorse Publishing, distributed by Simon & Schuster, available on Amazon. And I've got about 50 copies here that I'll be signing in the SIP Lounge after this. So at any rate, the reason why I wrote this book was because so many people have heard of Bitcoin and they didn't buy it. And the reason I didn't buy it, in the early days, there was always a reason, right? Oh, they'd ask their broker, they'd say, oh, it's a scam, or well, the broker wasn't getting a commission. Now that they're getting a commission, they're happy to say, well, put 2% of your assets into buying our ETF, right? So, you know, back when it was like $1, it'd be like, oh, this will never work, it's crazy. Then it went to $30, then it went back to $1. And then, you know, all of a sudden when it went to $30 was because, oh, people can buy drugs. Then the narrative doesn't work. It's like, you'll be arrested. You know, it's used for drugs. And then, you know, every single cycle is something. I'd say really at this point, we're kind of past that point of like, is Bitcoin going to zero? In fact, there hasn't actually been a Bitcoin obituary on the bitcoinobituaries.com in well over a year. We'll see what happens in 2026. So the cycles are real, and that's why I wrote this book. I wrote this book for people who don't understand the cycles. And yes, you can make a lot of money in the up cycle. This shows you how to not lose it in the down cycle. Okay, and that's my real information there. I've got bitcoinsupercycle.org as my page. I'm at Michael Terpin on everything, X, Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so what is Bitcoin? Why it's important? Well, it just happens to be the best performing asset class in history. I mean, real estate's great, right? I own a lot of real estate, and you heard all the problems that you can have with real estate. I actually operated a number of VRBOs with my ex and had every single one of those problems and more. Now I actually have the Mike Tyson mansion in Las Vegas and just doing high-end events there. You can ping me on that if interested. It's where the Tigers were. But at any rate, it's the best performing asset class in history. 200% gains per year. I mean, it's better than even leveraged real estate by a long shot. Let's see, why is this thing not clicking? Do I have to point it somewhere? Point it toward what? To back there? There we go, okay. That's the secret. All right, it's up 100x just since 2016. Right, it's actually a little bit more than that. 2016 was as low as $500-600. That's when I moved to Puerto Rico. I've been involved since 2013. I spoke in front of a group like this. Actually, it was a group of investors at the New York Angels. There were 100 people out there. They were listening to startup pitches. I talked about Bitcoin. It was $66. Not a single person bought. End of the decade, they asked what their biggest regret was, and not buying Bitcoin, and also not buying Pinterest when it was offered at $1.5 million. So at any rate, we're still in our infancy compared to gold. As of today, it's $1.65 trillion. When I got in early 2013, it was like 100 million. So you can see the massive appreciation since then. And gold is just past 20 trillion with the uptick of gold with all the economic issues. But Bitcoin is just as good a store of value as you can see in the appreciation here. Just has more dramatic cycles, which you can take advantage of. And again, Bitcoin ETFs, that was a big development last year. They've been proposed ever since 2013. And, if they had allowed them in 2013, the average American could have been buying Bitcoin at $100 instead of now, okay, great, now they give you an opportunity to buy it at like $85,000, which is still actually something that will make you money. So, again, in its very first year, Bitcoin ETFs are almost now on par with gold ETFs, which took decades to get there. Most successful ETF launch ever. Okay, point it this way. Okay, it's stable and a reliable store of value. Yes, it goes up and down from the peak of the cycle to the bottom, but every single cycle it goes up dramatically. And if you're not looking day by day, and you don't get Bitcoin as something to day trade. If you want to, you can, but it's a job. Or you can also be in a fund that does trading. It does algorithmic trading. I'm a GP in a couple of funds, and one of them we're going to be spinning off the Bitcoin Supercycle fund, which is going to follow these principles and then do algorithmic trading. And our back testing on it right now is 330% return in 2 years versus 170 for Bitcoin. So anybody who's an accredited investor can ask me about that after. So again, unlike the Fed, we're going to get the announcement today, and things will jump or dump, etc. The monetary policy of Bitcoin is fixed for the next 115 years. We know exactly when the halvings are. Every 210,000 blocks, which is roughly every 4 years, the supply of new Bitcoin gets cut in half. We right now have the 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. We're almost 20 million have been mined. So we have 95% of the Bitcoin already mined, and only 5% of the world having even $1 of Bitcoin. Do the math. Like everything else that is going to predominate once it's fully developed, the internet, mobile phones, televisions, those things all go through an S-curve of adoption. When you go from the early crazies to the fully deployed, you still have some Luddites that'll never use it. But in the future, you're not even going to know you're using Bitcoin. It's going to be embedded in things like ETFs and payment systems. Your bank will let you go back and forth between stable coins and your bank account. There's already Custodia Bank in Wyoming that is just suing the Fed to be able to do that, and it will happen. Where is that extra Bitcoin going to come from? There's only 5% left, and it's going to take 115 years to mine. So this is the first cycle that Bitcoin is now scarcer than gold in terms of new supply. Gold every year, about 1.5–2% of new gold comes on the market. We are now less than 1% of, it's about 0.9, I think it's 0.88 as of this last halving. All right, point this way. It's still messing me up, this thing. Hello? Oh, there we go. Picture tells 1,000 words. This is an algorithmic chart of where Bitcoin's come from when it was pennies in 2010. It doesn't even go through today. It goes through the last halving. So Bitcoin, I like to say, is a freedom asset. If you like freedom. Who likes freedom here? Okay. You don't have freedom with the banks. They tell you, what it's going to take your own money out, right? Okay, let's see. All right, it tracks every deposit, every withdrawal, every expense. It's going to support things. It's going to report things that are suspicious. You actually spent $10,000 on something. We better find out what that was and if we approve. So there's millions of Americans that are unbanked, billions of people in the world. Again, they can freeze your money if they think there's something wrong. And we almost had a bank run last year when Silicon Valley Bank was sort of taken out of business, by Yellen, and other banks followed. They debanked all the crypto banks, and they thought it would kill Bitcoin. It almost killed the banks, right? How ironic. And so again, all the problems of banks, and they're only going to get worse. Anybody believe in FDIC insurance? I was told there was somebody from the FDIC here. I believe the number is it's about, is it less than 1% is covered by the deposits? I mean, there's 30-something trillion dollars of bank deposits. I think it's only 100 and something billion of deposits. So a bank run literally will have to be bailed out by just massive money printing, which we're already kind of at the limit of what that can be without collapsing the dollar. Okay. All right, so Bitcoin's a little different. And again, I'm talking about Bitcoin, not crypto. Crypto, you can make a lot of money, but it's a job. You have to really do your research. It's got a lot more risks. Bitcoin is open 24/7, 365 anywhere in the world, universe really, if you go to the moon, with a connected device and the internet. And it's a pseudonymous ledger that proves transactions. The blockchain was invented by Satoshi, and it was really a phenomenal invention. So let's see here. Freedom to transact that in the world between two willing parties. It's digital cash. It's really become more digital store of value, and digital cash has become Tether, but we don't have time to go into all that. So how did Bitcoin start? I have a whole chapter on this about cryptography. I'm going to rush through this because I know Daven wants me to finish a little ahead of schedule. I'm having a problem with this clicker.
Yeah. Sticky, yep.
So at any rate, so here's some things about what was invented. Public key cryptography enabled all this. And I have a chapter on the cypherpunks in my book. Again, I'd mentioned a little bit about Bitcoin versus blockchain and crypto. You can just read this stuff here. There's a difference. You're not going to have, Dogecoin or Fartcoin being adopted as currency by Somalia. On the other hand, Trump coin, did get $70 billion. So I think the most important thing about Trump coin was it sort of clarified the policies of the administration that digital collectibles are not going to be governed as securities or commodities. Now, what you want to know is how you make money on this. Well, like anything else, you should buy low and sell high. And unfortunately, retail has had an overwhelming tendency to do the opposite. They hear Bitcoin just hit a new high, they mortgage their homes and they buy it at the absolute high price, and then when it crashes, they panic sell. You're supposed to do the opposite. In the stock market, in real estate, Nathan Rothschild, Lord Rothschild of the Rothschild banking empire, said a few centuries ago, you must wait until there's blood in the streets to buy, even if it's your own blood. And so, again, the charts show it, and my book shows it in great detail. These 4-year cycles, and I'll get into the sub-cycles here, tell you when to buy and when to sell. Bitcoin spring is when the seed of the new cycle is planted. That's the halving. We just had one in April of last year. That goes very flat for about 6-7 months. Well, I'll get into this here really quickly. Bitcoin summer is when the price grows parabolically. Okay, skip through there. Okay, so the years of the Bitcoin halving have been presidential years. I don't believe that's an accident. I think Satoshi intended it that way. So it's been 2012, 16, 20, 24. We have 28 more halvings to follow until the last Bitcoin in 2040. 2140, excuse me. Now it's going too fast. Okay, in Bitcoin spring, I can do this without this. In Bitcoin spring, basically, it's about 4 to 7 months, and it stays flat because there's two economic forces that are going against each other. One is the miners all of a sudden become unprofitable because the amount of new Bitcoin gets cut in half, and yet your expenses are the same. That usually takes about a half a year to kind of equalize for the bad miners to go out of business, get new machines, go to a place with cheaper power, renewables, etc. And then when it finally goes up and hits the high of the last cycle, that's Bitcoin summer. And so, did it go backwards on me? It's interesting. I should have somebody else clicking. Okay. Okay, there's Bitcoin summer. I'm just going to put the whole thing up and then I can talk about it. That's the year after the halving, 2013, 17, 2021. And this year, we're in Bitcoin summer. We went into Bitcoin summer the day that the prior high of last cycle was reached. That was in November. Okay. And again, 2012, 13, 100x times the price after the halving to the peak. then 30x, then 7.x. I'm projecting 3x this time, which will put us to almost 200,000. And then you got to sell. Bitcoin fall is when you sell. And yeah, I mean, because again, I show in the book that, you know, if you bought, and my time is up, so you're not going to see the rest of the slides. Basically, Bitcoin summer peaks about a little under a year after it first starts. So we started in November of this last year, election day, which I project in my book, was the day we hit 73,850. We should hit the all-time high in about a year, so around November of this year. And I'm projecting, depending on macro, it'll be between 150 and 250, probably right around 200,000. And then it'll drop probably by 2/3, because the last cycles it dropped by 85%, then 83%, then 75%. So you have logarithmically lowering in returns and arithmetically lowering losses. And the super cycle happens when the new demand that comes from the S-curve, when that other 95% of the population that doesn't own Bitcoin wakes up and starts buying it, that's all of a sudden when you end up having more, like we have more than 3x this time, we have 4x or 5x, that's when this cycle really kicks off, the super cycle. And you want to be in a position to profit from it. So I guess that's it, and thank you so much.
Wonderful, fantastic.